Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar Towards a Circular Economy, Challenges for Industrial Sectors, organized by the Franco-Chilean Chamber of Commerce. My name is Antonia Biggs. I am General Manager of the National Association of the Recycling Industry of Chile, and I will have the honor of moderating this event. This webinar will deal with the great challenges of circular economy for industrial sectors. We will have companies such as Michelin, Sachet Group, and Veolia participating as presenters, and we will count with a brief introduction from the Ministry of the Environment of Chile and closing remarks from AMUR, the Association of Rural Municipalities. I would like to mention that our webinar will be transmitted by streaming in the Polytech event in France, the biggest business-to-business international meeting on sustainability, circular economy, eco-mobility, and more, which is held at this time as well. Recording of this event will be available through the Franco-Chilean Chamber of Commerce, its YouTube channel. We will now watch a short video of the Polytech event. Please go ahead.
Nous sommes sur le chantier de la ZAC Saulnier à Saint-Denis. C'est un chantier de terrassement et de dépollution d'un volume de 165 000 m3. L'axe majeur de ce chantier est l'économie circulaire et la revalorisation des terres de déblais en remblai.
135 000 m3 de matériaux sains non impactés seront excavés, stockés pour être réutilisés ensuite sur les sous-couches routières ou sous terrassement des bâtiments.
On estime à peu près à 80% le volume de matériaux qui sera réutilisé sur le site dans cet objectif d'économie circulaire.
Nous assurons la qualité de nos remblaiements par un suivi permanent dans le fond de fouille. L'objectif est de livrer un remblai de qualité à la MGP pour ses opérations ultérieures.
Nous devons jongler avec les terres peu impactées qui seront réutilisées sur le site et les terres impactées qui seront évacuées en dehors du site.
Les 30 000 m3 de terres impactées seront évacuées et revalorisées dans des filières de traitement telles que le groupe Sachet et par la société Biogénie. Nous allons avoir 50% des évacuations hors site qui seront réalisées par voie fluviale afin de réduire un maximum le flux routier sur les différents axes parisiens. Donc là, on est sur un quai de chargement qui se situe à 10 km du chantier qui nous permet de charger les péniches. Dans une péniche, on met environ une trentaine de camions qui permet de réduire énormément notre empreinte carbone. Pour assurer un suivi environnemental, nous avons mis en place la traçabilité. Chaque camion qui quitte le site est accompagné d'un bordereau de suivi de déchets. Ce bordereau de suivi de déchets suit le camion jusqu'au lieu de livraison sur les filières de traitement.
Toujours dans cette idée d'économie circulaire, nous revalorisons également les bétons issus des déblais. Donc ces bétons sont sortis des tentes, stockés à l'extérieur, broyés, triés et réutilisés dans le fond de fouille.
Nous sommes à peu près à mi-chemin sur les travaux de terrassement.
Nous avons terminé notre première phase de remblaiement qui se suit par le démontage des tentes que vous voyez derrière moi.
Sur ce chantier, une dynamique s'est créée entre les différents acteurs. Cette dynamique va nous permettre de livrer le chantier à la métropole du Grand Paris dans les délais impartis pour fin décembre 2021.
Thank you. That was the Sachet group video. We will show the Polytech event video at the end. So now, to open this event, we will hear from Guillermo Gonzalez, head of the Circular Economy Office of the Ministry of the Environment of Chile. Guillermo, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Antonia. It's a real pleasure to be here this morning. Thank you for the invitation. Congratulations to the organizers, the Chilean French Chamber of Commerce, ANIR, AMUR. It's really great to be talking about this morning. I'll share my screen straight away. Give me a second. There we go. Can you please confirm, Antonia, that you can see it all right?
Yes.
Perfect.
I can see it. Just
All right.
on presentation mode would be great because I can see the slides on the left hand. But if not, that's okay.
I am seeing it as a presentation mode.
As a presentation.
No.
Okay, but we can see it.
Did it move to the next slide?
No, it didn't move to the next slide.
I don't know what happened. Let me give it one more try. Let me just do this. Okay. Does that work?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So this is a very brief presentation just to give you an overview of what we are doing in Chile from the public policy side to move towards the circular economy. This is a transition, a transformation that we deem as that we think is fundamental. It's urgent, and there's many different actions that we're doing. As I said, I only have 10 minutes, so I'm not going to go into the details of the different things. We can go deeper into any of the topics afterwards in the during the Q&A part. So the first thing that I wanted to tell you about is that's the most recent actually the most recent instrument that has been published. This was published only 5 weeks ago. This is our circular economy roadmap. We decided to do what several leading countries in the world have done, which is to provide a comprehensive strategy on how to move towards the circular economy. That's what France did. And actually, France was one of our inspirators in terms of how we structured the work, and we convened an international advisory committee of which we had the honor to have the French ministry as part of that. And basically what we did here is to provide a roadmap to say what is it that we should do to become circular. That's not going to happen overnight, we know, and that's why we took a 20-year horizon. We did this together with the most relevant actors of society, with the business associations. ANIR was one of them, with the municipalities, with the civil society organizations, and of course the different public sector organizations. And with them, we established several targets that are really ambitious for us, and that start to give us a sense of what the change we want to see happening is, and also what that means for the industrial sectors, right? We want to reduce per capita waste generation by 25%. That means not only do we want to recycle, I'm going to talk about that later on, but we want to generate less waste. And that means a lot of things that need to happen. I'm going to go into that later on. We, of course, want to recycle a lot more. We are only recycling 4% of household waste today, and we want to make a huge leap towards 65% recycling rates, which is the EU the EU target for all countries by 2035. This is our target by 2040. And in the process of doing all this, of heading this transformation, we want to generate 180,000 new green jobs. What we say in this roadmap is that to do this transformation, to make it happen, we need to see 4 transformations happening. One has to do with innovation. We need to do things differently. And that means innovating across all the value chain, across all the different things that we're doing, the products, the production processes, the business models. Second, this is a cultural transformation. This is a something where most people will need, all people will need to play a role as consumers, as sorters of different wastes at home, but then also all people at all levels in the different companies, in the public sector, etc. There's a regulation challenge that we have ahead of us. Our regulation is not fully prepared for circularity, and we need to make a major update of that regulation. And then finally, what we have said is that we need to make sure that this transformation gets to everywhere in this long and beautiful country, which is Chile. And that's our umbrella policy. And then I'm just going to mention 4 sectors that are very relevant for us. First of them, construction, huge consumer of materials, huge generator of waste, huge generator of greenhouse gas emissions, and that's why we developed a circular economy roadmap specifically for this sector. We want to start doing this for other sectors as well, but this is one of the priority sectors because of all the potential for circularity that we have here. And again, here we have specific targets and dozens of actions that we need to do over the next years to make this happen. Second, plastic. It's been a major issue, not only in Chile, of course, globally. Again, the EU has been very, very active on this. We have been looking at what's been happening there and taking some of the things and generating new things that haven't been done anywhere in the world. We banned plastic bags back in 2018, and now only 2 months ago we published a second law, a single-use plastic law that basically removes all single-use products from a fast food tray. So when you go to a fast food restaurant, there's a lot of things that will automatically become waste. And what we're saying is that everything on that tray will need to be reusable. And in that sense, that is a major breakthrough. We are the first country to introduce such a policy in the world. It's been done at the city level in some parts of the world, but nowhere at the country level. And we have worked with the industry also on this issue. We were the third country after the UK and France. We were the third country in the world to launch a plastics pact, where we convened all the most relevant actors of industry, also municipalities, civil society organizations, to develop, again here, a roadmap on how to move towards solving this very pressing issue. Third, so construction, plastics, and third, organic waste. What we have here in Chile today is that we are only recovering, we're only recycling 1% of all organic waste coming out of our households. And we want to make a huge leap again here to 66% by 2040. And that's why we developed this national strategy on organic waste. There's huge opportunities for industry to develop the composting plants, the anaerobic digestion plants that we will need in order to make this happen. So that's a third issue. And then a fourth issue, of course, EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. This is a law that was approved a few years ago, and we are now in the process of implementing it. These are the 6 products that are listed in the law. The law allows us to go into more products, which is something that we are planning to do as well. But we are basically finalizing this first stage with these 6 products where we are setting the specific targets for them. For instance, for tires, back in 2018, we were only recovering 17% of used tires. And given that they cannot go into a landfill, they were basically thrown anywhere in the country, which is really a dramatic situation. What we're saying is that by 2030, we are telling producers that they will need to be recovering 90% of all used tires and 100% when we talk about mining tires. And on packaging, which is another the other product that's already with the rules that have been published and that are with a timeline already fixed. What we will see happening over the next decade, over this decade, is basically a huge change in the way we recycle. Today, most people will need to go to a recycling point. Our recycling rate for household packaging is only 12%, and we want to reach a 60% recycling rate, which means that we need to change the way we recycle, and we need to go to people's houses with a recycling truck. Just as we have a garbage truck moving around, we want to have a recycling truck going there once a week. And basically what we see here is that in this regulation, we have a plan to do that. Of course, again, not overnight. These are not things that happen from one day to the other. This takes time. It's gonna take us to the year 2034 to cover 80% of all households, which is basically all urban areas in Chile, with door-to-door collection. Again, huge opportunities, huge challenges for industry. In order to make this happen, we not only need the trucks moving around, but we will also need very sophisticated sorting plants that we do not have in Chile today. Sorting is now being done manually, and we need sophisticated sorting plants like the one I had the opportunity to visit in Paris 2 years ago. So again, a lot of opportunities for industry, a lot of challenges in these different areas: EPR, organics, plastics, construction, and then many other areas that are covered in our circular economy roadmap. I'll stop there, and I'll be happy to answer any questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guillermo, for that introduction. And now we will listen to our three speakers, and hopefully, Guillermo, you can stay with us. We have some questions at the end. And our first speaker would be Alberto Cáceres, Head of Sustainability Programs at Michelin Chile. He will be presenting mining, tires, and circular economy. So please go ahead, Alberto.
Thank you, Antonia, and thank you to the Chilean French Chamber. This is a big opportunity, a great opportunity to Michelin to talk about sustainability and how we are going to work. I'm going to take some word from the Guillermo González presentation about the tires and how Michelin is going to face this challenge from the law. And we want to do more than the law is saying to do for the producer. So we can start with the presentation, Daniel, please. Thank you. Okay, I would like to start for what is our commitment, like a group, like no specifically talking about Chile, but what is the Michelin vision in terms of sustainability? Next slide, please, Daniel. Okay, led by our CEO, Florent Menegaux, in the Michelin of tomorrow, everything will be sustainable. This conviction is the backbone of our vision as a company. This is a beautiful word, but we don't want to say just word. We want to traduce this word in actions and how we are going to turn it, this purpose and values in a strategy and commitments. Because the most important for Michelin are the planet and the commitment that we have with the planet. So by 2050, 100% of sustainability materials used in our tires production. This means that we have less than 30 years to attach this target, and how we are going to do that, because this is a big challenge for the company. Remember that we produce every kind of tires, not only for passenger car or trucks, mining, airplanes, and we have to do for every all of tires. Next slide, please. So we have one strategy that we call 4R strategy, that is reduce, reuse, recycle, and renew. We want to reduce the tires in the planet, and how we are going to do that? We are going to use to make lighter tires that consume less energy and last longer. This is a very important thing because if the tires last longer, we are going to use less tires in the work for the same work. Okay, reused or tires have to be recuperables and recoverable. Recycling, we are going to use recycling materials to produce our tires. And review, we are going to design the tires, the new tires, thinking in a new design to be more clean for the planet. So today, more than 25% of the raw materials in our mining tires are made with the renewable materials. And the goal is to be 100% make these tires with the renewable materials in 2050. It's a big challenge. And our tires design is, as I said before, to be lighter and last longer. But we start since 2005. Michelin reduced its environmental footprint by 50%. This is very important because we start to work 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and now we are going on in these proposals to reach the targets. Next slide, please. Okay, now talking about Chile, Michelin launched the first recycling plant in the world. This is a big announcement that Michelin made because we are going to respond to the Chilean red law with a big plant that we want to build. We are building in the second region of Chile, and we are going to focus on the mining tires. Why mining tires? Because Chile is a mining country, and the mining tires represent a big issue for the country and also for the mining companies that want to be clean and produce a green copper. So the idea, what we are going to do, is we are going to collect the tires from the mines around the country, especially in the north of Chile. We are going to transport these tires to our pyrolysis plant, where we are going to downsize the tires in small pieces of 3 or 5 inches. Just one comment that the tires, the diameter of the tires is 4 meters and the weight is 4 tons. So we are going to reduce the size of these tires in a big way to produce as small pellets. And once we have these small pellets, we are going to introduce with the Enviro technologies, that is a pyrolysis technology. The pyrolysis is not new, but the technology used by Enviro is very different from the other technology. And we are going to produce mainly 4 products. The most important is the steel that is very easy to recycle and to introduce in the already recycling cycles that we have here in Chile. But the most important is the recovered carbon black that we are going to produce. Michelin, as a tires producer, knows exactly the quality of the recovered carbon black that needs for produce new tires or new rubber products like conveyor belt. Today, there is a lot of pyrolysis plant around the world, even in Chile, that the recovered black, carbon black that produce is not the quality to produce new rubber products. With this technology, with Enviro, we are going to do that. And the idea to have a circular economy is to introduce this recovered carbon black to produce and to make new tires and hopefully new mining tires. That means that by 2050, the mining tires become to be a new mining tires, and we are going to use these mining tires made with other tires in the Chilean mines to produce the green copper. That is one of the biggest product that we have in Chile to export. Next slide. This is an example and the technology that we are already using with the Enviro. We are producing in a smallest quantity this recovered carbon black, and the recovered carbon black that we are producing in Europe is being used to produce the tires for the Moto E, that is the Grand Prix of electric motorbike. And since 2019, we are using these tires with this recovered carbon black. So this is an example of how we can make true this idea that the tire become to be a new tire. And that is not a dream, it's a reality that we are doing already. Okay, and this is what I have to share with you. I don't know if we do have some question. Next slide, please. Thank you, Antonia.
Much, Alberto, for this great presentation. We will now continue with Frederick Evans, General Manager of Sachet Group Chile, with his presentation, Circular Economy, Recover and Enhance Contaminated Soil. So please go ahead, Frederick. Your audio is off. Great.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you very much, Antonia. Good morning to the audience in Chile, and good afternoon in France. I will share my presentation with you. Is it okay, Antonia?
Yes, great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, just a short introduction to the Sachet Group. So Sachet is a company that was founded more than 35 years ago by Joël Sachet in France. And it's a company that today remains in control of the Sachet family, maintaining its values and its mission from the beginning of contributing to the circular economy. Here on this slide, you can see some of the key figures for the company. So we're in 15 different countries, almost 5,000 employees, and we are very much focused on the complex waste and the complex problems of environmental management that our customers have. And also, in line with the circular economy, we generate more energy than we consume in the group as part of our mission. So, as to soil remediation, what is soil remediation and why is it important in a context of the circular economy? So, soils are sites that have been contaminated or affected by human intervention sometime in the history, be it because there was a factory on top of the site, a waste dump, or in some cases oil tanks, etc., that have been leaking. And this leads to a site that has contaminated soils, which over time can affect the underground water as well. So it can have an effect on human health if left as it is, and obviously it is not apt for being used for a new plant or a new activity on top of the site if it is not remediated. So how does a remediation project work normally? So normally customers, industrial customers, it could also be public, from the public sector, identify a site where they know or suspect that there's a contamination happening. This, of course, is quite delicate. So the first step is up on the top right, which is a confidentiality agreement. After that, we conduct a diagnostic study where we see, okay, what is the impact here? How risky is it? What kind of materials do we have? And based on that, we evaluate and select the possible solutions. And when we do that, we take into account the technical and economical aspects, and in many cases also the social aspects to make the solution sustainable. Once we've selected that and agreed with the customer how to proceed, we start, and this of course also involves the authorities, because the authorities have to approve these projects, usually if they're at a certain scale. We then go into the engineering design. We then execute, monitor, and analyze to see if the remediation has been effective. And once that has happened, of course, there are some loops there. Once that has happened, we deliver the remediated site to the customer or the authority, or depending on the case. And then usually also there's a follow-up and monitoring over some years, especially if it's groundwater that is also affected beyond the soil in itself. This is a graph that I assume that most of the audience probably knows. So this is just, sustainability, so economical, ecological, and social impacts. The reason I put it here is that it is very important for us. What we've seen in many cases is that it is pretty obvious to look at the ecological and the economical part of the remediation, and somehow forget about the social aspect, being that it seems obvious that the surrounding community should be happy that remediation is happening, because at the end of the day, we're removing an environmental and potentially a health risk, and leaving a clean site for a different use. So that seems pretty obvious that the community should be in favor of this. However, due to lack of knowledge, and in some cases lack of trust in companies and in authorities, sometimes the communities can actually be a roadblock to these remediations happening. So just wanted to put this in here because it's very important to consider this early on in a project. Who are the communities, and start communicating with great transparency about what is going to happen on this project, so that you can have the communities on board. I would like to just mention a few case studies to give you an idea of what these projects look like. This one here is the one that you saw in the video up front. So I'll go through it fairly quickly, but essentially this is from a typical remediation project in Europe. So an industrial park from the end of the 19th century, with gas producing companies leaving soils with hydrocarbons and heavy metals. Part of the challenge of this was precisely the social or the community aspect because of the location. So it had a location which was fairly complex to deal with. And here, so the challenge again, decontaminate the soils and also the underground waters. What is happening in this project, it's still ongoing, is essentially that we're removing 165,000 cubic meters of soil, which is equivalent, somebody made that calculation, to 50 Olympic swimming pools, so quite a bit of soil. And as you could see in the video, 30,000 cubic meters of this was removed by river and road for offsite treatment, and the solution was optimized in the function of impact on road and the river, and also to make it as carbon efficient as possible. Finally, we also introduced a circular element in this by using the clean soil and the debris from the site that was torn down from the demolition, and use that to refill and make the foundations for the project that's going to replace, that is going to be built on this site. the execution period you can see here, and the cost of 17 million euros. It's just to show that these projects are not cheap, but they are key to get value out of sites that otherwise would be abandoned for a long time, and while they're abandoned, constitute an environmental and a human health risk. Another example, which is somewhat similar, is in the center north of France, where there's a project to reconvert activities of a former pharmaceutical company, which had been dealing with a lot of hazardous materials, which had traces of that in the soil. So challenge here, again, rehabilitate and remediate the site. And to give you an idea of what kind of actions are in this this type of project. So a lot of this was stabilized on site, which has a big benefit because you're not moving things around, creating traffic and carbon emissions from the transportation. Removal of the underground infrastructure, which is more of a sort of a physical challenge to go ahead with that. And then again, as before, in the circular economy, we crush and classify the concrete from the pavement and foundations to reuse as much of that as possible. Beyond that, we built a platform to store the hazardous material coming out. And we also manage the underground and rainwaters at the site during this whole process. This is a project that's still ongoing. Because of the size of the project, it's somewhat cheaper than the other one. But again, this is the type of projects that we see for soil remediation, and we believe that it's key to revalue soils and also protect underground water, which is increasingly a scarce resource. That's it for the presentation. Thank you very much, Antonia.
Thank you very much,
Frederick. Return it to you.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Now we will have our third speaker. So Travis Hipp is market leader of food and beverages at Veolia Chile, and he will be presenting challenges and solutions in circular economy for the food and beverage industry. So go ahead, please, Travis.
Thank you, Antonia. I really appreciate the opportunity and want to thank the Cámara Franco-Chilena for the opportunity and all the other great speakers up to this point. Today, I have the pleasure of presenting Veolia's vision for challenges, opportunities, and solutions for the food and beverage industry and the transition towards a circular economy. Veolia's mission is resourcing the world. As resources, we apply our 160 years of experience in water, energy, and waste management to promoting the transition towards a circular economy. Over those years, we've worked in collaboration with the food and beverage industry across the globe. With over 200 contracts active in wastewater and energy management across all of the sectors, they help us understand the needs, importance, and impact that the industry has. This impact is significant, and as such, we have a very clear idea of both the incredible importance of the industry to our lives as human beings and the need for swift action and sustainability now. These are just some of this is just a snapshot of some of the major opportunities for improvement in the areas of water, energy, and waste that the food and beverage industry has. Globally, the strain on resources and the population projected to increase by up to 1 billion in the next 15 years. We're going to push changes in our way of life and our production processes. As such, regulatory systems worldwide are responding. We see extended producer responsibility, the laws here in Chile, such as mentioned by Guillermo, and abroad we see discussions of carbon tax in the European Union and water regulations in work in many countries. All of this pushes investors and financial institutions to pressure companies in the food and beverage industry and other industries to regulate their processes. Notably, the Climate Action 100+ investor group just published this year its recommendations to its investors for industry-wide changes, and one of those being the incorporation of circular thinking at the executive level and all production levels of food and beverage companies. So that is sure to affect change. Consumers too are more climate aware. We see this in new habit adoption and in economic proof over the last few years of their willingness and ability to support brands that are environmentally sustainable, moving in a circular fashion, and they're more than happy to be transparent about that on social media and in the news. So we need to be companies that incorporate circular thinking into our processes. What does that mean? Well, it's a theoretical framework promoted by Ellen MacArthur that many of us have already seen in other webinars. It divides materials into technical and biological segments and provides a critical approach to the way we use them in order to recover the largest amount of resources possible, extend their use for as long as possible in the life cycle, thus reducing negative impacts that are produced today by the linear economy. So with that in mind, we need to think about how do we transition from our current linear thinking to what is the circular thinking that the market and the world is asking of our industry. First, we need to look at our own linear concept. Food and beverage industry has a very long and spread out supply chain. Each segment of that supply chain has its own resource uses. And so we need to look at each one of those from farm to fork and determine what are our resource uses, and then what are the unique losses and inefficiencies of each one of those parts of our cycle. Because each of these inefficiencies in a circular economy represents a potential opportunity. There are many to discuss here. I won't get into each of the details of each one of the sections, but it's important to understand that the theoretical application of this framework is the most important part. So where do we stand in Chile today? Well, as Guillermo mentioned, there's a framework and a roadmap in place for the transition to a circular economy. On a practical level, there are already circular solutions available for some waste types. There's composting available to return organics to the land. There's recycling loops available for many products, not all. And for those that are not recyclable, there are options for energy capture through waste. And the rest are being sustainably disposed of in landfills. But this is just an overview of solid waste. And solid waste is not the only thing in the picture. The circular economy is more than just recycling, and there are other options. So for the rest of the presentation, we'll go through a few in the 10 minutes that we have. One of the techniques in circular thinking is the application of short loops. These are plant level, ground level applications where we use the exact same technique, where we look at the resources being used, the inputs, and the outputs, which are waste or losses or inefficiencies in our processes. So as we evaluate each of these inefficiencies, we look for opportunities to return them as resources or inputs into our process locally. Some examples could be the water treatment for reuse, which moves us from effluent to influent. Digitalization and monitoring of energy systems to detect inefficiencies and then implement new technologies, moves us from emission to retention. And then organic subproduct use and inverse logistics take us from residue to resource in just a few short examples of what are short loops. This in and of itself is a topic that we could talk about for probably hours. Another technique is local loops, where we zoom out to incorporate other parts of the supply chain, upstream and downstream. In this case, we'll take the example of agriculture. How can the plant processes return resources to agriculture or other parts of the supply chain? An example would be the possible use of treated waters for irrigation, either locally around the plant, on the property, or possibly even in local agriculture. Of course, the waters would need to meet the standards of the environmental authority where the plant is. Another opportunity would be to design a system where you work with, where we work with composting facilities or vermiculture plants to return our specific resources back to our agricultural suppliers, thus returning a resource to the land that will produce food for our supply chain. Another example of techniques that we can use on this level is cascading loops, where we look at our industrial hub, our neighborhood, so to speak, and look for opportunities to reuse our subproducts, to share surpluses, or even to optimize our asset management, whereas we can take the use of a existing water treatment plant that is subutilized and combine that as part of our service in order to reduce the amount of resources needed to construct our own. So in summing up, energy from biomass, water reuse, waste recovery, and biogas recovery at landfill are all proven pragmatic and successful loops that Veolia is employing with its clients in the food and beverage industry in Chile today. Each of them has significant benefits, and opportunities are there to be more widely used in Chile. But I'd like to go back to the short loop examples that I spoke about and just share with you a couple of these so that you can hopefully try and use circular thinking and apply it in your own cases. The first one I'd like to speak about is Prunesco. It's a fruit company based in Chile that was looking to meet its sustainability goals, reduce waste, reduce costs, and increase efficiency. They recognized that their principal subproduct, which is 3,000 tons of dried plum pits, was a source of biomass energy, and they could reduce their dependence on fossil fuel. So we worked with them to design and install a boiler to run on this biomass, and the project resulted in a 50% reduction in the cost of steam production, 90% reduction in the cost of landfill, and about 4,000 tons of CO2 reduced from their carbon footprint, all from something they found in the trash. Another example of short loops at the plant level is Nestle's Mossel Bay factory in South Africa. Nestle is known for its implementation of environmental best practices, concentrated on the reduction of water use and environmentally sustainable practices in waste, resource management, and greenhouse gas reductions. In this case in particular in South Africa, they sought a partner to design, construct, and operate a water treatment and recovery plant. The project resulted in the water being reused in non-food related processes, and the organic subproducts from this treatment are digested to create biogas and fuel their boilers, through which they achieved energy neutrality and reduced their water footprint in a water scarce region. Before I finish, I wanted to leave you with just a few high-level recommendations. First, as I've already said, we need to integrate circular thinking into our everyday at all levels, especially procurement and operational processes, and incorporate it into our goals. We need to look at incorporating short loop technologies that are existing today for quick wins in sustainability, close the loop on energy through biogas, organics, biomass that are produced from our own processes. And we need to incorporate eco-design and rethink our product and procurement processes to reduce our impact at the consumer levels. The food and beverage industry faces a lot of challenges, and as a result, great opportunities to secure not only its own future, but ours. As I said, 10 minutes is just not enough to go through all of the possibilities here, and I'd love to continue the conversation. And I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks again to the Cámara Franco-Chilena, Guillermo, Alberto, Frederick, and to each of you listeners for the opportunity. Antonia?
Thank you, Travis. We will indeed now continue with a 30-minute discussion. So we will have all of our speakers and Guillermo right here on board. So there's Frederick, Guillermo, Alberto. Thank you again for all the presentations. We have some questions. We have 30 minutes to discuss. So I would like to start with Guillermo, and we would like to know how are the incentives for the transformation towards circularity being generated in the different industries? That's one question, and another one that we thought about is: do you see any risk that this agenda that you mentioned to us and all the efforts that you have done could be halted in the next administration? So that's the start off the conversation.
Great. Thank you very much, Antonia. Great questions. Regarding the first point, incentives, right? So we're always being asked about this. So what are the incentives you'll be providing to companies in order to make this transformation? We are the Ministry of the Environment. We're mostly a regulatory body. And the biggest incentive that we see is providing a set of rules for the long term so that companies know that they will have, that this is what will be happening in Chile. I think what Michelin just presented is a clear example of that. We set very ambitious, concrete targets over a 10-year period, and that allows them to take that investment decision in order to actually come and develop their this new project in Chile. And that's what the most relevant way, I would say, in which we're doing this. On top of that, we've been working very closely with the innovation agency, which is Corfo, and with them we've developed many different specific calls for startups and entrepreneurs in order to develop these new kinds of initiatives. But I would say that the most relevant role is the first one. And that relates to your second question. I mean, we are setting long-term goals, and so we are almost 5 months from an administration change in Chile. We're going to have presidential elections in 6 weeks. So the big question is, okay, so what's going to happen next? Is there going to be a big change? And of course, we don't know. That will depend on who comes next. But my take is that there will not be a major change. And why do I say that with certain confidence? It is because of two things. First, because all of the things we've been doing, we have worked with all the different actors. So one of the things that we take, for instance, from the circular economy roadmap is that we have the business associations, the civil society organizations, the municipalities. They feel this as part of their agenda as well. So we are very confident that they will make sure this really endures into the next administration and into the ones that will follow. Our circular economy roadmap is a 20-year roadmap, and that means 5 administrations. And then more factically or more concretely, what we've seen, for example, for when we think about EPR, is a regulatory scheme that was started by President Piñera in 2013, approved by Bachelet's administration. We're continuing it now. So we don't really see a risk here. There's no two visions on this. The single-use plastic law was approved by unanimity in Congress in a period of extreme polarization. So that really, I think, can give us a lot of hope that these things will continue in the next administrations in the future.
That's great, Guillermo. And there are some questions as well being delivered by our YouTube channel. So I would ask, while I'm going to do some questions for Alberto, could you please answer the other questions if we don't have time here to do it live? But thank you so much for reassuring that this will continue, right? All these efforts, as you mentioned, have been with great participation. So I truly believe that this will continue, just like you mentioned. So therefore, continuing with Michelin Chile and Alberto and what you presented, we were wondering, there are already other pyrolysis plants working in Chile. So what makes the Michelin pyrolysis plant different to others? That's one question. And in the 4R circular economy strategy that you mentioned before, the first R is reduce. So how is Michelin going to reduce the use of tires in the world?
Okay, thanks, Antonia. Very good and interesting questions. The first one, what makes the Michelin pyrolysis plant different to the others that already have here in Chile and probably in the world? There's a lot of difference. I would like to say two big differences. One is the process that we are going to use. We are going to use electric energy to power our pyrolysis plant. Normally, the pyrolysis plants that are working around the world use some fossil fuel like diesel or gas, and of course the emissions are higher than electric plants. So the footprint that Michelin plant is going to have is lower, and the energy that we are going to use, the electric energy, is going to be green energy coming from the aeolic plants that there is in the north of Chile, and solar plants that already are in the north of Chile. So it's going to be the cleaner plant in Chile, pyrolysis plant in Chile. And the second, and probably the most important for Michelin, is the product that we are going to get. I mentioned that Michelin, like a tire producer, know exactly the quality of the recovered carbon black that we need for produce our rubber products. So there is a lot of different qualities in the recovered carbon black. Carbon black is normally come from the oil, the petrol, but with this is going to be we are going to use this recovered carbon black to build the new tires. Today, the recovered carbon black that are produced in different pyrolysis plant is used like a fuel in a cement plant or a thermoelectric plants. Okay. And the second part of your question, that is, it looked like a paradox, because yes, if we are a tires producer, what is the intention to reduce the tires market? So, but it's not a paradox. It's a very tricky question, because if you have one tire that lasts longer, you are going to use less tires. I'm explaining to you. If you are one tire that run 100,000 kilometers and other just 50,000 kilometers, for the same distance, you are going to need two tires. With Michelin tires, the design that we are trying to do on our tires, every kind of tires, from the car, passenger car, trucks, and mining tires, that is the main market here in Chile, we try to use tires that last longer. And with that, we are going to reduce the consume of tires. And with that, we are going to reduce the legacy tires. That is what the main problem that we are facing here in Chile, because we don't want only to recycling the tires that we import in the previous year. That the law is the target of the law. We want to go for the legacy tires that is in the desert, that is in different areas, to clean all this part. I don't know if I answered your question, Antonia.
Well, that's great. So longer life extension, basically, for the tires. That's great.
Good.
Thank you.
You get
so much.
you resume in one sentence.
Yes. Thank you, Alberto. That's great.
My
So,
pleasure.
Frederick, we had some questions now for Sachet Group, and how does soil remediation and rehabilitation contribute to a regenerative economy? How does it contribute?
Okay.
And another question. Sorry, we have a lot of questions. There's also some in the YouTube channel, but also, are the conditions in Chile for the development of remediation projects within the framework of circular economy?
Thank you, Antonia. So good questions. I think to the first question, how does this contribute to the circular economy? I think it's worth thinking about soil and sites as a non-renewable resource. At the end of the day, as we expand our footprint as humanity in the world, we keep, as I think somebody mentioned earlier on, we keep encroaching on nature, etc., because we take new sites to build our future infrastructure, housing, etc. If we're able to reuse the sites that have already been used in the past, that is a huge advantage. Secondly, it's important to link the soil remediation to water. So in Chile specifically, we have two big problems have been compounded by the climate change that we're seeing, which is desertification, where we have the desert from the north encroaching on, sort of going further and further south, which means that soil and sites that are apt for agriculture, etc., becomes more and more scarce. And also, the impact of a contaminated site is oftentimes, in the long term, is on the groundwater. And we have a lack of groundwater, of clean groundwater, that instead of cleaning the contaminated groundwater, let's take it at its root and remediate the sites. To the second question, which is, are the conditions in Chile good for remediation projects? I think the diplomatic answer is partially. The more honest answer is probably not really, because essentially the rules are not 100% clear. I think as part of the roadmap for construction that Guillermo mentioned, I think it is very linked with that, in that we should include this in the objectives that we have going forward. But as it is right now, a company that has a major contaminated site has a very unclear roadmap ahead of them to make this cleaning. So essentially, right now, a project that is of a certain size is considered a project that has an environmental impact. So it goes through the same impact study and the same process that a productive plant would do. Although, objectively speaking, there is no beyond during the execution of the project, but beyond that, there is actually a positive impact environmentally. There is no impact. You're taking away an impact. However, it still goes through the same process, which is not really designed for this type of project. So that makes the rules a little bit unclear, and in the end, it sort of depends a little bit on the local regulators, how they will take this. So I think a big challenge for this to happen. I mean, we have thousands of contaminated sites that have been identified and reported and documented in Chile, but very few of them have actually been remediated. And a big part of that the reason why that hasn't happened is the lack of clear rules and regulations.
Thank you, Frederick. That's really interesting, and the point you made about soil being a scarce resource, right? So this is amazing, the possibility to renew it and to rehabilitate it. It's really a strong and powerful action.
And there are impacts also on biodiversity.
Exactly.
So it's not just human health, etc. It goes beyond that.
So thank you so much for your answer, and Travis from Veolia, what do you think is the main challenge in terms of implementing circular economy for the food and beverage industry, and that's one question we had in mind, and also it's been spoken to, but access to water is increasingly critical. We just mentioned it, right, for today's world. And could you talk about the global tendencies that you have seen in terms of water and reuse in the food and beverage industry?
Sure, Antonia, thank you. So the first question, I believe it's really hard to talk about what's the principal challenge, but for me it would be that it's such a wide-spanning supply chain from farm to fork is a long distance to go through. There's multiple actors involved. It's not just one company. It's not just the company that's the brand behind the food that gets to our table, but it's also the farmer. It's also our own actions. So that's challenge number one. And I think in order to sort of address that, we need this type of activity that we're having right now. It's education, right? We need to begin to think circularly at all levels, but also strategic management wise, the executives of each of these companies and their teams need to be putting this as a priority in terms of the way we think at work. Besides that, we can't ignore the fact that companies exist to do certain things, right? The food and beverage industry exists to feed us. And so as such, they haven't necessarily developed the expertise in this type of thinking or design thinking or circular design thinking. So there's also the need for expert help, for consulting, for looking for the right partner for a long-term project. I think that those are the principal concerns that I see. Budgets are always a problem, no matter what time of the year we're in. Right now, I believe we're starting to see sort of a push towards that being less of an issue as sustainability and circular economy and climate crisis becomes more of an issue. And speaking of climate crisis, we can move on to water scarcity, I suppose. It's a local issue. It's a global issue. I mean, we talk about sequía, we talk about drought here in Chile, but it's not just Chile, it's Europe, it's Africa. South Africa is one of the cases that I mentioned, it went through water rationing recently, and continues to sort of go back into that mode. So we can talk about that plant as part of the global trend. There are others, but the trend is in reducing the consumption through by any means possible, right? In the case of some of these powdered milk plants, namely one in Jalisco, Mexico, and this one in South Africa, you see the extraction of water from milk as part of the process. So they're obtaining water from a different source than groundwater, and then passing it through filtration to use it as drinking water. After it's used as drinking water, it goes through filtration to be used in processes. After it's used in processes, it's filtered again to go into irrigation. So the maximization of the life cycle of water is really where it is. And that requires investment, right? It requires investment upfront and now versus looking to the future to hope that maybe the drought reverses itself, or that our efforts in circular economy revert this situation. There's I mentioned the plant in Mexico, which is a zero water plant. It actually takes no groundwater, and I think that's the high bar. But then in Chile, you see other actors looking to implement solutions internally in their plant for reuse. We have several companies in Chile that are working at 80% or above of reuse of their water, at least in one cycle. So that's the tendency, and I think that's where we need to go. And then beyond that is monitoring that and looking for continued improvement of inefficiencies.
That's great, Travis. And yes, a lot of investment for sure will be required, as you mentioned. So thank you so much for those examples as well. And we still have some time for other questions. So I will look through the questions that have come up. And there's one for Guillermo Gonzalez. And it says, how do you see the Office of Circular Economy interacting with and assisting the food and beverage industry to achieve circularity in Chile?
Sure, great question. And the answer is not how do I see this happening, is how have we lived through this happening. This is actually something we've been working very closely with that sector. When we think about plastic packaging or packaging in general, around 60-70% comes from food and beverage. And in that sense, they are the key actor there. They have been one of the most relevant actors during the development of the regulation for EPR, specifically for packaging. We've been working with them now during the implementation phase. There's a big producer responsibility organization that is being formed under the Food and Beverage Association. So, and we've been collaborating with them to make sure that the implementation goes smoothly. And then we've also developed other actions with the packaging world, again, where food and beverage has a key role. One of them is the plastics pact that I mentioned before, and that Antonia was leading up until like 2 weeks ago. And that's been another great way to collaborate with them. And then also we developed another initiative that I didn't mention before, which is a recyclability label for packages. Basically, we're giving packages, products in their packaging, we're giving them a label, an official label from the Ministry of the Environment, if they are recyclable in Chile. Not if they're technically recyclable, because there's many things, especially plastics, that can be recycled somewhere in the world. But if they are recycled in South Korea, then it's not really of use for us. That will still become waste if we buy it here, and if we don't have a logistic process, a logistic line to get to South Korea. And so that's another thing we've been doing. We already have 1,600 products with a label. We are seeing them in supermarkets all over the place right now, which was one of the things we wanted to see happening. And so again, they are a key sector for many of the things we've been doing. We've been working very, very closely with them, and we plan to continue doing that.
Thank you, Guillermo. Yes, so public and private initiatives are really key regarding the question that was just made. There's a lot of questions, right? But I'm going to see one particular or pick some before our 30 minutes are up. So for Frederick, what did you do with the removed soil of the example you showed us?
Okay, thanks for the question. Well, the removed soil we had, and I think you're referring to the first presentation. So we had 160,000 cubic meters, if I remember correctly, that were removed, and 30,000 that were evacuated or sent to different sites. So of the 160, 30,000 went off site for treatment, and the remainder remained on site. So we removed 160. There was a classification made, and the clean part of it, which is 130, stayed on site and was used as foundations for the future project. Of the 30,000 that were evacuated for treatment, those normally go to different sites where there can be a more detailed segregation. Normally, we will try to recover whatever soil we can. Normally, if it's organic contaminations, it's possible to do bio or thermal treatments to clean the soil and then reuse it as soil elsewhere. If it's heavy metals, that's a little bit more difficult, and typically economically, it's more efficient to landfill it in a safe site. So that's normally what happens.
Great, thank you. Well, I'm seeing there's a lot of questions also. Oh, sorry, my dog is doing some strange noise beside me. There's a lot of questions that we want to answer for sure for all the viewers, and we will take the time. And I would ask also Travis and Alberto to also take the time, and we can review afterwards, right? What are the questions that are still on board? And I would like now to all of us accompany the organizers to see the small video that we did not see at the beginning of the Polytech event. So we will show this video, and then we will continue with our last speaker and our closing ceremony.
Polytech, ça représentait un petit peu pour nous la Champions League des salons et de l'innovation. Le Polytech Innovation Award nous a vraiment permis de nous faire passer une étape en termes de maturité. Ça nous permet de réaliser que ce que nous faisons peut être non seulement compris, mais également est soutenu. C'est également des contacts qui ont été créés, noués, mais ça nous a permis également de faire la publicité de toute la filière.
Pour nous, cette reconnaissance est extrêmement importante, elle nous met sur le devant de la scène. Nous avons actuellement plusieurs contrats en cours de négociation, en France, mais également ailleurs en Europe. Et nous pensons que le coup de projecteur donné par Polytech permet d'accélérer la signature de ces contrats.
On a été contacté par pas mal de grosses entreprises industrielles qui travaillent dans le domaine de l'eau et on a pu avoir une médiatisation plus importante. D'apporter un peu de crédibilité supplémentaire à notre action, du coup de nouer des contacts au niveau commercial, mais aussi au niveau partenariat.
Polytech est un salon de renommée internationale et donc ça nous paraît être une vitrine particulièrement intéressante pour mettre en avant notre technologie.
Polytech est clairement, en France en tout cas, l'événement le plus important dans notre milieu.
Polytech c'est quand même la référence dans tout ce qui est écologie et développement durable.
For showing the video, and thank you again to our three speakers and the Ministry of the Environment. And now for our closing remarks, please let me introduce you to Francisco Gomez, President of AMUR, the Association of Rural Municipalities and Mayor of the Municipality of El Monte. Ahora escucharemos unas palabras de cierre por parte de don Francisco Gómez, presidente de AMUR y alcalde de la Municipalidad del Monte. Así es que adelante, Francisco.
Muy buenas tardes. Un afectuoso saludo a Antonia Viggs, a Guillermo González y a todos los expositores y públicos que están siguiéndonos en esta transmisión o que han sido parte también de los paneles anteriores. Quiero señalar que si bien existe una alta capacidad para la generación de riqueza, los sistemas productivos lineales imponen grandes presiones sobre los entornos naturales y urbanos que los sustentan. Las ciudades son responsables del consumo del 75% de los recursos naturales, el 66% de la energía producida y 54% de los materiales del mundo. Y se espera que para 2060 suman el 80% de los alimentos disponibles. Adicionalmente, las ciudades emiten entre el 50 y el 80% de los gases de efecto invernadero globales y generan la mitad de los residuos sólidos del planeta. América Latina y el Caribe no escapa a esta tendencia. En la región con la más rápida urbanización del planeta, las ciudades generan 160 millones de toneladas de desechos sólidos al año, de los cuales únicamente se recicla alrededor del 3%. El desarrollo económico basado en el consumo sin limitación, en la explotación intensiva y depredadora de los recursos, en la producción y comercialización competitiva y en el desecho y acumulación de volúmenes de residuos cada vez mayores o en la emisión de gases de efecto invernadero, está creando sobre nuestro planeta una presión insostenible que la aboca al colapso de los ecosistemas. Aunque los problemas ambientales como la lucha contra el cambio climático, su efecto sobre la biodiversidad y la creciente escasez de recursos exigen soluciones globales que están en la órbita de las organizaciones internacionales y los estados, también representa una importante preocupación para los municipios, desde el más pequeño al mayor de estos. Desde todos los ámbitos sociales, económicos e institucionales han de proponer soluciones que den respuesta a estos retos amenazadores para el planeta y para quienes los habitan. En Chile, cada persona produce diariamente 1,5 kilos de residuos, que anualmente significa 6,5 millones de toneladas de residuos domiciliarios. De esa cifra tan solo se recicla el 10%. Adicionalmente, se deben incluir los residuos industriales, los que representan 10,4 millones de toneladas al año, según la encuesta nacional del medio ambiente del año 2018. Un 29% de la población indica que la basura es uno de los temas que más afectan a la población chilena. La idea de una economía lineal, de usar y botar, ya no es posible ni viable. Hoy las exigencias medioambientales, económicas y sociales nos imponen defender la implementación y profundización de un modelo de economía que comprenda el convertir aquello que eliminamos en nuevos recursos y con ello generar nuevas materias primas, en valorizar aquello que tiramos a la basura. El crecimiento demográfico y económico ha traído consigo dos grandes problemas. Por un lado, disponer de una gran cantidad de recursos que satisfagan las necesidades de los individuos. Esta necesidad de recursos y una economía lineal han tenido como consecuencia un agotamiento de estos, como también un aumento en la calidad de residuos, lo que afecta a nuestro medio ambiente. El desarrollo urbano sostenible, desde un enfoque integrado y sus interrelaciones con el mundo rural, son un elemento fundamental para el desarrollo de la innovación y la implementación de soluciones para una transición correcta hacia una economía baja en carbono y una preservación de nuestros recursos naturales. Según Naciones Unidas, el 70% de la población del planeta vivirá en las ciudades al año 2050. Es cierto, cada día aparecen más iniciativas medioambientales por parte de las municipalidades. La nueva legislación de prohibición del uso de bolsas plásticas surgió primero como iniciativa de algunos municipios que las eliminaron del comercio. También se han creado asociaciones especializadas en los temas de sustentabilidad ambiental, de manejo o gestión sustentable de residuos. La economía verde y circular como modelo de desarrollo social sostenible y de gestión integral eficiente es la que mejor adapta al nuevo paradigma con el que los municipios deben afrontar el futuro inmediato. Esta favorece que el valor de los productos y materiales se mantengan durante un mayor tiempo, que la nueva actividad productiva genere riqueza ambiental y empleo, que los recursos sean protegidos de un consumo compulsivo, que los residuos y el uso de los recursos se reduzcan al mínimo y que estos últimos se conserven dentro de la economía cuando un producto ha llegado al final de su vida útil, con el fin de volver a utilizarlos repetidamente y seguir aportando valor para la satisfacción de las necesidades humanas y del planeta. Ahorrar energía, optimizar y reducir el uso del agua, fomentar el ciclo de los materiales, reducir residuos y favorecer el reciclaje, uso racional del suelo, favorecer la movilidad sostenible, fomentar la cohesión social, garantizar el acceso a la vivienda, revitalizar la ciudad y liderar la innovación digital son los grandes objetivos generales que debiéramos plantearnos como municipios. Pero todavía nos falta reconocer el rol de la autoridad municipal, implementar medidas para ayudar a consumir mejor, fortalecer la idea de reducir, reutilizar y reciclar, mejorar la información ciudadana, gestionar mejor los residuos, aumentar los porcentajes aún bajos de reciclaje, facilitar y promover la separación de residuos domiciliarios en origen, potenciar las alianzas de innovaciones político-privadas, dar mayor protagonismo a la economía, entre otras. Las políticas públicas no solo dependen de la autoridad, la norma o la voluntad, funcionan también en el mundo de la educación y la cultura. Allí el municipio tiene un rol destacado. La evolución hacia una economía circular es esencial para un crecimiento inteligente, sostenible e integrador, que permita mejorar y sostener la eficiencia en el aprovechamiento de los recursos y podrá aportar importantes beneficios económicos. El cambio global hacia una economía verde y circular tendría un efecto inmediato si las grandes empresas y los estados adquieren el compromiso de implementarlas en un breve plazo. Sin embargo, en el ámbito local, grandes ciudades y pequeños municipios pueden aportar una valiosa contribución, dado el gran impacto ambiental que producen las comunidades humanas en el planeta. De hecho, hoy día participo como presidente de los municipios rurales de Chile, pero también presido o encabezo una comuna que es la comuna del Monte, que recicla un 17% de sus desechos y se convierte en la comuna que más recicla en la región metropolitana, con 41.000 habitantes y con un presupuesto bastante acotado, por no decir con dificultades económicas también. Por lo cual el compromiso es sin duda en la defensa del planeta y del medio ambiente, en su protección, es muy importante desde el punto de vista de la voluntad política. Es evidente que una buena parte de los problemas ambientales, como la lucha contra el cambio climático, su efecto sobre la biodiversidad y la sobreexplotación de los recursos, implica un cambio radical en el modelo de la gestión de los municipios. Imprescindible es, por tanto, que las comunidades locales y sus representantes se replanteen con urgencia la forma en la que pensamos, producimos, compramos y trabajamos en el entorno local. Solo desde una búsqueda positiva de soluciones de carácter integral, mediante el apoyo comprometido de las instituciones locales e innovadoras, actitudes emprendedoras y creativas de la ciudadanía y las empresas, será posible que el conjunto de agentes puedan contribuir a la creación y transferencia de nuevas soluciones, servicios, productos y tecnologías que faciliten el avance hacia la economía verde y la economía circular. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Francisco, por relevar la importancia también de los gobiernos locales, que son claves. Entonces, voy a pasar ahora al inglés. Thank you, Francisco, for speaking about the importance of local governments. And I would like to remind everyone that the entire event will be transmitted via streaming via the YouTube channel, and also will be replayed via the social media and the official website of the chamber. So thank you very much. Merci à tous et à bientôt. Thank you.